Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. Pleased to be joined by the head football coach at Traverse City West, and of course is James Wagner. How's it going?
Going great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing pretty well. So I got to ask, how things are going. This is year two, so you know everybody now, and what's it like coming into this season compared to when you first came in year one?
Night and day difference. Year one into year two is such a noticeably different just kind of feel of the team, feel of coaching staff. You got a lot of things at the foundation in place of what you want. People know what to expect. There are just a lot of things and systems in place, and you know your players, so you know how you want to kind of utilize them within the given offense or defensive schemes. There's a lot of just familiarity and understanding what the standard is and the expectation, which makes it fun, because it's not a lot of guessing. It's not a lot of, pause and wait. Should I do this? Do that. Like, people are allowed to be themselves in year two a little bit more, which I think benefits everybody within the program. So, yeah, I'm excited for year two. It's definitely a good turning point for any head coach when they get into it. So.
Yeah. Okay, so kind of preview this team and really where how the summer is just going, just team wise.
Yeah, it's interesting. Every year, I think it's just always fun for any coach to kind of analyze and step back and see, like, what's this team going to be like, and how are they going to come together? Because your leaders of the past are out the door, and who's going to step up as leaders, and for this new team going in the summer. But we've been, um, being out, putting work in the weight room 4 days a week, and competing in some 7-on-7s. We've done some camp days of just working on our scheme and building that for the fall there. So, yeah, I think it's your prototypical summer for any program, but throwing in some team bonding things in there from time to time. So it's been a good summer, and I think the kids are anxious to get into the season. I've seen a lot of progress um, throughout the summer, not only from a schematic standpoint, but from a cultural standpoint with my guys. And it's been a hard but fun summer to see it all kind of develop and start to come together.
Yeah. All right. Now it's time to talk about some of the players that you have on your team this year, the
Sure.
returners and some of the guys to watch.
Yeah.
We'll start with the skill positions and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I mean, I've got some guys that are coming back this year that are definitely going to be guys to look out for. I think you always start, with your quarterback position. Owen Hendricks was a starter about halfway through the year for us last year, and he came in and kind of developed himself. And by the end of the year, he really kind of took command of the offense. And he's a guy that's just going to be a dual threat kid, a kid that can run, a kid that can definitely stretch it down the field a little bit, and he'll be a kid just to have on the radar. I mean, he's very special. He's very cool hand Luke. Sometimes he just reminds me of Joe Burrow in a sense of, he doesn't have to run, but when he does, it looks good, and then he can throw it, and he can, um, he takes control of the offense when he needs to, but he never gets too high or too low, and it's really fun to watch him grow in that role. And then Drew Esper is a kid to just have your eyes on. He is a kid. Last year was a All-State free safety for us as a sophomore. Going into his junior year, he's definitely put a ton of work in the offseason. And, I know he's high on a lot of recruit boards throughout Michigan as well. He's definitely a kid that is special to coach. Um, he is special when the ball is in his hands, and he just makes plays. And um, and he's one of those kids, when you tell him to do something, he does it right the first time, and he soaks things in so much. He's an excellent kid, and he's going to have a great year. Bodie Toki on the offensive line, returning all conference honorable mention kid. He's going to be an anchor within our offensive line there. Defensive line rise. Roman Lesk is a kid that is up and coming, and he's going to be a senior and somebody that is just making plays down there in the trenches. Sometimes those guys don't always get the glory that they deserve, and I think both Bodie and Roman do a great job in the thick down there. And we're going to have some new kids that are going to shine from the sophomore class, which are now junior class. And I'm excited to see who's going to take the bull by the horns and take advantage of their opportunities when they're on the field. So anxious to kind of see which kids those are going to be. I have some thoughts in mind of who they might be, but it's early and you never know, when the season hits, what's going to happen. So
Okay. Let's go to the offensive and defensive line.
yeah, so Bodie was a player that I talked about there. He's an anchor in there. He's our center. He's going to be great. Roman's another kid that's going to be great down there in the trenches. Like I said, he's going to be solid on both sides. Um, our tackles, Colton Ratola and Carter Candell, are seniors as well, and kids that Carter did not play all year last year due to a knee injury. So we're excited to have him back and back on the field for himself. And yeah, I'm anxious to see. I didn't get to see him play because last year was my first year, and so I hadn't get to see him play yet. But what he's shown in the offseason here, he's committed and bought in. So, and then Colton, got a lot of starting reps and reps on offense and defensive line last year, and he's going to be a part of our lines on both sides and be somebody that we lean on heavily. So. Jackson Gallagher's as a kid that's going to be a nice DN for us. Noah Bennett's going to be a nice DN for us. Noah Dumont on defense is going to be a kid who he plays with passion and fire. He's just that defensive minded kid that really gets after it on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, he's the spirit of our team. He is the emotional leader. I mean, he is a guy that just simply he's a playmaker, and he's gonna be making some plays. I know that for sure. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited about what we have. The one kid I didn't mention is Aiden Griffiths, who um, he'll be out for a little bit. He broke his fibula. He's a wide receiver that would have started for us, and a corner that would have started for us on both sides of the ball. And Brady Vaughn, who also is returning, he's out for probably the year with an MCL injury. And so both those kids, are blows to our team and blows to the senior class just because of, these guys have played together for a long time. And not having those guys on the field hurts. But I think the guys that are behind them, are taking advantage of the opportunities and they're getting a lot better. I expect Aiden to be back, just not sure when. It's just a matter of time and seeing how he heals. So,
Yeah. Let's go to linebackers and secondary.
yeah, linebackers. I've got a nice class of linebackers. Starting in the middle, we have Braden Popa, Carson Toothman, and Owen Wolford are the three that come to mind who are going to see a lot of playing time in there. I've got some guys that are in there that are newer, who are going to be in rotation. But between Braden and Carson Toothman and Owen, those three kids in the middle there are going to be really strong in the middle of our defense, outside linebacker wise. Between Colton Core, who's a kid that I forgot to mention earlier on, he's a guy that is simply he's going to be on starter on both sides of the ball and just kind of a gritty kid who puts his head down and works. So he's going to be a hybrid kid of a safety and a outside linebacker for me. Noah Dumon's one of those kids that's outside linebacker, and again, he's just this passionate player. I've got two juniors back or coming up and coming that are going to be serviceable and guys that get playing time between Cam Mink and Cade Laurent. And then at the corner position, Griffiths is one of those kids who was going to be a starter there, and we'll have to fill in there. But we have, guys that I know I can count on. Chance Warner, Aaron Stallworth, Dylan Dunklow, Will Turnquist, all kids that, I could see getting out to the field. Skylar Hall. Those are all guys that are going to be in the rotation at corner who are athletes and can compete. And I think competition brings a lot of
good things to a football team, and it raises everyone's play to a different level. And then in the middle of our defense is Drew Esper at free safety, who he's just a playmaker all across the field. And so when you can put your best athlete in the middle of the field and let him go make plays, I think you're in a good position.
Yeah. Okay. Special teams.
Yeah, special teams. I mean, honestly, it's a melting pot of just a collaboration of kids. I think we lost a kicker for us and Dougie Rice last year, who did a really good job. We picked him up from the soccer team, and I plan to pick up another soccer player in time. But we've got some holes to fill with punters and kickers and all that. But I'm not worried about that yet. We're focusing more offensive and defensive currently. But I think guys that can return between Drew, Aaron Stallworth, those are kids. When the ball gets in their hands, it's you don't know what's going to happen, and so you got to have your eyes on them at all times. So it'll be really fun to see how they take on those roles this year.
Okay. You talked about the kids. Now let's talk about, the schedule that you have.
Sure.
And it's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
That you have. Of course, you know how the SVL is. Of course, I know you mentioned I know of course we start off the August 29th at home against Gaylord.
Yeah.
September 6th at Grand Haven, September 13th home against Bay City Central, September 20th home against Grand Blanc, September 27th at Midland, October 4th at Midland Dow, October 11th home against Mount Pleasant, October 18th home against Bay City Western, and then October 25th finishing out the regular season against Traverse City Central. So pretty good schedule. I know it's a lot of teams that made a big run in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
What's the outlook for the schedule this year that you guys have?
Well, I mean, honestly, I think anytime you look at our schedule, I think number one, everyone on our schedule is respectable, and everyone on our schedule are teams that can beat us, and teams that we're going to compete with, and give our best as well. And if we don't bring it to the table each week, you're putting yourself in a bad position. So every single game we have to be ready. Every single game we have to not overlook any opponent and simply take it one day at a time. I think Gaylord is a team that's coming off a historic season. Finishing in the third round of the playoffs and an undefeated regular season, and they're bringing back a lot of kids, and they're going to be strong up front. Their quarterback is going to be a junior this year, and he's new in terms of the varsity, but I know he's a good player, and I know they have some skilled kids that they're bringing up that are pretty good too. Grand Haven is an up and coming team with their second year head coach there, and a guy that is simply going to continue to build that program. He's got a lot of buzz going on. You see it all over Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. And they're really doing some great stuff. And then you go right into Bay City Central, and playing them early on is a tough thing. And it's like at that switch with Bay City Western, and we caught them at the end of the year last year where they had some injuries, and so I expected them to be fully healthy. And then you go into Grand Blanc, who is a cross division opponent, which everyone in the SVL does, and they're a tough draw, and they're one of the bigger schools in the state of Michigan, and we know that they're gonna give everything that they can to us to be able to continue to have their streak against us. So definitely challenges in the first four games, and then obviously you get into our divisional play with the Midlands, and Midland High is going to have a new coach, and they're going to be, we don't know, what they're going to be doing, or, but I know the athletes and the type of kids that they have there, and they're always competitive. And same with Midland Dow, and they're coming off a year, which I think they're heading in the right direction with their program, and I know their coach does a heck of a job, and I think he's in his second or third year now too. I think it's his second. And so again, a lot of second year coaches here are just, going to be hitting their strides of trying to put together their programs. And, everyone's going to be growing. And so I think it bodes to each program, and it bodes to our schedule as well, that it's going to be tough. And then obviously you get into Mount Pleasant, who Mount Pleasant's good every single year. I've talked with McIntyre a couple different times, and he'll downplay his team to anybody, but he knows secretly that he's got a lot of good weapons. He's got a lot of coaches, and I think he's sometimes just playing it off. But he's a great coach, and he does great things with his kids. And I expect Mount Pleasant to always be a team that is competitive and up there in terms of one of the league's best. And then you roll right into Bay City Western, who I know they're going to be big up front. They lost some athletes on the outside, but they're going to be big. And those kids that were sophomores are going to be kids that are growing, obviously, into junior roles, and going to be the guys that they rely on athletically to make plays. And by the time we hit them in that week, they'll be in their full swing season stride. And so, we got to bring our best there. And then obviously the last game of the year is our Patriot game. And, we know across town, like, we never take them lightly. That is the game that we want to win at all costs, and do everything within our power to be able to have a W in the win column for that week. So it's a tough schedule. The SVL is a competitive league, which is great. I think it brings the best out of all teams. And I think, that's what football's all about, is being able to bring the best out of people, and being able to simply compete at a high level. And I want my kids to take on that challenge, no matter who it is. Never overlook an opponent and play at their best. So, yeah, I mean, just talking about it gets me fired up, and thinking about those weeks and getting into it. But we're still far off. We still have a lot of developing we need to do, and a lot of time to do it, but that time is shrinking quickly. So.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about leading into this week. I know you guys are wrapping up the summer schedule as we really get into the heart of the season, starting in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
So, what are the next few weeks gonna be like for this program?
So we'll wrap up our summer stuff at the end of the week here, and we'll simply give them some downtime to be able to spend time with friends and family, and just allow them to kind of get away and enjoy kind of the last bits of summer here in Northern Michigan. And I think that's important. I think allowing them to just simply spend time away from the game and just rest is a big deal. And I'll open up the weight room if they want to come in and lift and just stay active. It is a longer dead period than normal. So just simply being able to give them the option to come in and lift and run around. I'll let them do that. But August 12th starts obviously practice day one. And we kind of do like a lock-in situation of, we spend the night at the school here. We do a 2-day overnight stay and do some different activities throughout the days there to create some team bonding and team just culture. And then we'll practice kind of throughout the day as well at different times. So yeah, it's a good way for us to kick off the season just together, and just being able to share that time. I think there's a lot that goes into being able to wake up together, do life together, eat meals together, and being able to share that time together early on in the season. It kind of sets the tone of the season for itself. And yeah, so that, and then obviously you get into the scrimmage in the following week after that on August 22nd there. And yeah, and that's where you kind of really get to see where your team sits. And then I think the biggest jumps occur between the scrimmage and week one, and then week 1 to week 2. And so, yeah, I'm just excited to get into it, but also not in a hurry. I think there's valuable things that are still to be had in these next couple weeks, to allow these kids to be at their best come week 1.
All right. Well, James, thank you so much for the time as always, and best of luck to you guys in the coming football season.
Appreciate it, Casey. Appreciate what you do, man.